Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. Let me know if the audio goes bad again. Okay. All right. So talking about the front end, so we're going to use Selenium WebDriver primarily for testing the front end. Okay. So just remember Selenium WebDriver, and most of you will see this on your resume. Okay. So working with Selenium WebDriver, testing the web pages, making sure that web page is loaded fine, tested with the different browsers, and all those things. Okay, so anytime you see Selenium WebDriver, you know that you are doing the front end testing. Okay, all right. Now let's look at the back end testing. The middleware. Okay, the middleware is it's a primarily a service. Since it's a service, you're going to do a request and you're going to get back a response. Okay, that means the front end will send a request and it's going to get back a response. Okay, that means the middleware testing is primarily a web service and it has a request response structure. Okay, so the front end can be JavaScript, it can be Java, it can be Python, any language. Okay, the service can be in any language also. Okay, the service can be, let's say, Java, it can be C++, it can be Python, .NET, it can be anything on this side. Okay, so how do these two different modules talk to each other? Okay, so they use something called JSON. So if you see, this is the protocol that is used. Okay, so I'm gonna load some example. Okay, let's look at this thing. Okay, so here is a JSON structure. This is how it looks like. Okay, you can see pretty much a key values. Okay, so there's a key called employee1, and inside that you have a name, Lisa, designation, programmer, age, and salary, and all this. Okay, you have a second employee and the details of the second employee and so on. So this, what you're looking at, is a JSON structure. Okay, that means you can have different employees, and within that you can have nested structure. That means inside that employee you can have another structure and so on. Okay, so this is how JSON looks like, which is pretty much a key value pairs. Okay, you have a key and there's a value. Here the key is name, value is Lisa. Here the key is designation, the value is programmer, and all that. Okay, so this is how the JSON data looks like. Okay, so if I go back to this image, so the front end will send a request saying, hey, get me the product information. Okay, and the service is going to give back the product information saying that, hey, here is product one, or maybe in the case of eBay, it will be like listing one. This is the price. Okay, this is the description. This is the seller, this is that, and so on. So there can be multiple things that are returned by the service. Okay, so that is what the JSON data is going to be returned from that product service. Okay, if it's a user, let's say you're trying to get the user information. Hey, here is my email address, phone number, username. What are the details are there? Okay, so that's going to be returned by the service. Okay, so the front end is in JavaScript, the backend maybe in .NET or maybe C++ or Java, completely different languages, but they're going to use this JSON structure to send and receive. Okay, so that's one of the advantage of making it different modules. That means front end can be in some language, the back end middleware can be in different language, and both of them are going to communicate using some common protocol like JSON. Okay, there are other protocols that are available, something like XML. Okay, so you can also use XML. Um, okay, so let's look at this example here. Okay, so this is how XML looks like. Okay, as you can see in XML, there's always a opening tag and a closing tag. Okay, and there's an so any tag that you see, there has to be a closing tag. Okay, in JSON you don't have that. In JSON you just say what is the key, what is the value. Okay, in XML you're gonna have a opening, closing. Okay, so here I have birds opening, here I have closing birds. Okay, here I have species opening, species end. Okay, you see a backslash. Backslash means it's closing. Okay, so name here and a backslash name. That means the name is going to end here. Okay, but this is how XML looks like. And if you compare JSON and XML, uh, JSON has its own advantages. The advantages is that it is smaller in size. Okay, so if you have a name, you just will say here is a name and you're going to give the value. Okay, but in XML you're going to say name, you're going to have the value of name, and then you're going to say slash name. Okay, that means if you look at the overall size of the data, this is going to be XML is going to be longer than JSON. Okay, XML is going to be much longer compared to JSON data. Okay, so when you send like a huge amount of data, XML is going to add up. That means every time there's opening tag, there's a closing tag. And if you have thousands of records, it's going to add up, and the XML size is going to be much bigger than a JSON data. Okay, so JSON is more preferable when working with most of the languages. So most of the people out there use JSON. Okay, but there's also some applications that use XML. Okay, yeah, I mean there are some advantages of using XML also. Let's say for every opening there's a closing tag, which makes it easy for some applications to know when does the tag end, when does the value end. Okay, so let's say there is a backslash or there's a double quote inside this data. Okay, how are you going to embed that? Okay, but in XML you're not worried about having a double quote inside the data and all that. Okay, so there are some advantages of using XML, there are some advantages of using JSON. But majority of the applications, at least for the website, majority of the applications use JSON data. Okay. All right. Now to test the services, what are the technologies you have? Okay. You can use Python, you can use Java. It's up to you how you want to test it. If you are using Python, there's a library called request library. Sorry, yeah, requests. Okay. So this is one of the Python library that is used for testing. If you are working with Java, there is something called as rest assured. Okay. But yeah, you can use if you are in Python. If the company is using Python for most of their automation, you'll be using this request library. You can make web service request. You can get JSON data and all that. Okay. But if the company is using JSON, you might have to use REST assured framework to make those request responses and all that. Okay. So in your resume, you might see working with Python request library, or you might see if it's a Java profile, you might see worked with Java REST assured framework and all those kind of stuff. Okay. Um, but yeah. Now coming to database side. Okay. There are different type of databases. There are probably like hundreds of different databases at this stage. Okay, so most of you know the famous databases like Oracle. Oracle is one of the very famous or mostly used databases. There's also MySQL, which is a free open source database. There is PostgreSQL. Okay, this is also free open source database. There is Microsoft SQL Server. So the Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle is a paid software, and they're very expensive. The Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, they're all open source databases. Okay, so these are all relational databases. Okay, there's also IBM DB2. IBM has its own database, DB2. These are all like very famous. A lot of companies use these databases. IBM DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle. There's also a lot of companies that use PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB, and other databases. Okay, but irrespective of what database the company is using, all these databases come under the umbrella of relational databases. Okay, in a relational database, you have select statements, insert statements, update statements. They are pretty similar. Okay, I mean, if you know one database, the other databases are pretty easy. I mean, most of them are very similar. Okay, 90% it would be very similar. Maybe a few functions here and there would be very different, but the majority of the things will be very similar. So I would, I mean, we're gonna go into databases also in the next sessions. But if you understand one database, then you're gonna easily understand other databases. Okay. All right. So that is the database. Now, if you want to test with the database, Python has different connectors. Okay. So if you are working with MySQL, there's a MySQL connector. Okay. There's a MySQL connector for Python that you can use to connect and all that. Okay. So if it is Oracle, you can use cx_Oracle library that you can use to connect Python interface for Oracle database. Okay. So you can use this library to connect to Oracle, get the data and all that. Okay. So there are different libraries depending on what database you are connecting to and what is the use case. You can use those libraries to connect and pull the data. Okay. So for now, we're going to look at from the manual point of view. Then we're going to come back to automation a little bit more. Okay. So here we covered the front-end Selenium WebDriver. For the services, you can use REST Assured or Python request library. And for the backend, you're going to use, depending on what database it is, we're going to use one of the libraries. Okay. All right. So this at least will give you some idea of what's in your resume. Okay. In your resume, there might be like tons of different technologies. Don't get scared. All these technologies are kind of like very, I would say, very relevant, and it will help you, boost your profile up and all that. In some cases, it might be too much, but it will help you in the sense that once you get placed, it may be that you may not even use the technology. Okay, but yeah, I mean, if you know one database, it's pretty much that all the databases are very similar. Okay, if you know like one framework, like Python requests, REST Assured will also be very similar. Okay, because the underlying web service technology is all the same. Okay, all right. So let's go into some details here. So the front end, we have a front end, and we are interacting with the web service here. Okay, so the interaction happens through something called as HTTP protocol. Okay. So the front end is making a request. So when I'll open up a web page called ebay.com. So I search for something. That search is going to the web service using HTTP request. Okay. So here, you can see that. Yeah. This is better. That is what it is. So you have something like a web browser that is running on your desktop. Maybe it's running on your iPhone, or maybe it's running on your, inside thermostat, whatever it is. Okay. So you have some application that is running. It is talking with the web service. We saw this, right? There's a product service, there's a user service, and all those. Okay. So it's talking with the web service. So it's sending a request. It's getting back some response. Okay. So here in this case, it is saying, get me the product information for iPhone. Okay. So it's going to get back a response with the product details. Okay. So in this case, it's like, get me the user information, and you're going to get back a response for that particular user and all that. Okay. So the front end is talking to the back end using HTTP protocol. And that HTTP protocol is what we're going to look at right now. Okay. Uh, HTTP method types. There are different methods. Okay. So here there are 4 or 5 important methods. Okay. There are many other methods, but these are very important. At least we should be aware of this. Okay. There is something called as post request. Post means you are creating a new resource. Okay. So let's say you are creating a new user. If you want to create a new user, you have to do a post request. Okay. Or you want to create a new product, then you have to do a post request. So post means, think of this as an insert statement or a create statement. Okay. You are creating something new that wasn't there before. Okay. And there's a get request. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so post is most of create. Okay, you are creating a new resource that wasn't existing before. Okay, so you're creating a new user. If you want to register on the website, you're gonna do a post request. Okay, you're gonna fill some form details like username, email address, phone number, and you're gonna click on submit. But what the front end does is it does a post request to the back end. Okay, so it's gonna create a new user. Okay, and a get request is more of like the resource is already existing and you're trying to read the resource. That would be a get request. Okay, so you're not creating a new resource, but you're trying to read that resource. Okay, so you can call the get as many times as you want, but there won't be any changes to that resource. Okay, so you can say get me the product information 1,000 times and you're still gonna get the same information, but you cannot do post more than one time, because if you try to create the same user with the same email, same phone number and everything, it's going to fail. Okay, so post request you cannot call multiple times. I mean, you cannot call multiple times with the same info and all that, because it doesn't make sense you to create multiple times. You already created a user, you're not going to create multiple times, right? So post request is something that you call once most of the times, and you will call once, but get request is something you may call many times. Okay, because you're trying to read that resource and all that. Okay, and the put request means it's an update request. You already registered your user account details, and let's say you change your address or maybe you change your phone number, whatever it is. Okay, you're doing a put request. Okay, put primarily means you're trying to update the resource. Okay? And when you're updating, you have to specify the resource identifier, like a user ID or maybe a product ID or something. You are updating that particular resource. So you have to provide that resource identifier. So you would do a put request. There's something else which is like delete request. As the name says, you want to delete your user, delete the product. So you can do a delete request. Okay? There's also another method called patch. So you're going to see something like a patch. Okay. I mean, we saw post, creating, get is reading, put is update, delete is delete. But there's something called as patch. Okay. Patch is very similar to a put. Okay. Patch and put are very similar. Patch is also going to update, but in a patch method, you don't have to provide all the data. So, try to get an example. Yeah, let's look at this guy. So here you can see, here is a put method, here is a patch method. Okay. In a patch method, you don't have to provide the entire data. Okay. Let's say somebody, there is a user name and a country. Okay. Or let's say this is the actual resource. Okay. You have a name. This doesn't list everything, but that's okay. Let's say in a put method, you have to provide all the data. Okay. The username name hasn't changed, country hasn't changed, but only his something else changed. Email, phone number changed. You still have to provide all the details. Let's say there are 10 fields, only one field got modified. You still have to provide the rest of the 9 fields. Okay, because the put Put method says, give me all the data, whether it's modified or not modified, but you have to provide the entire data. Okay, so that's what the put method says. In a patch method, patch says, give me the data that's only modified. You don't have to give me all the data. Just give me the data that got modified, and I will update only that particular field. So in a patch, you only provide the data that changed. Okay, so in this case, only the country changed, and you would only send one field. Okay, so the patch is a very small request because you are sending the data only that got modified. You're not sending the entire data. Okay, not all services, not all web services support patch, but patch is very efficient because you're changing or modifying only the data, or you're from the front end, we are sending only the data that got changed. Okay, so patch is very small compared to a put request, but patch and put are same in the sense you are updating the resource, you are updating some data. Okay, all right, any questions? All right, guys, if any questions, let me know. All right, so hopefully you guys installed Postman. We're going to use Postman now. If you haven't installed Postman, I'm going to give you a few minutes to install. We're going to try a few of these HTTP request responses. Okay. Also, before we jump into Postman, I want to talk about HTTP status codes. Okay. So when I request for some data, let's say product. Okay. So I say, give me product information for Nike shoes. Okay. For whatever the model. Okay. So I'll get back the data. But before the front end actually looks at the data, it looks at something called a status code. Status code tells whether it's successful or whether it's a failure or what kind of failure it is and all that. Okay. So there is something called status code, which we're going to look at. Okay. So primarily there are a couple of status codes that are important at a high level. Okay. Forget about this one, but anything starting with 200 status code, that means it's a successful response. Okay. That means you tried to get the product information, you got back product information, so you will get something like a 200 status code. 200 means it's a valid successful response and everything. Okay, and then you have 400 status codes. 400 means something wrong with the client. Okay, that means either the request is invalid, that means you're trying to request for a product that doesn't exist, or maybe you're trying to get user information for a user that doesn't exist. Okay, or maybe you don't have the permission to request for the data. Okay, maybe you're not logged into the website. Whatever the reason. Okay, so anything wrong with the front end, anything wrong with the user or the person who is requesting, that would be 400 status code. Okay, let's say everything is good. You have the proper permissions. You logged into the website. Everything is good. But let's say there is something wrong with the service. Okay, the product service trying to connect to database, but whatever reason, product service is unable to get you the product information. In those cases, you will get back 500 status code. Okay, 500 status code means that the service cannot do what it's supposed to do. Okay, maybe there is a bug in the service, maybe the service crashed, who knows, but the service is not giving you the data and there is some issue with the service side. Okay, so in those cases, you will get like a 500 status code. Okay, all right, so within like 400, there are different status codes. So let's open 400 status codes. All right. 400 by default means it's a bad request. That means your data, you're trying to request for something, or maybe we are sending JSON data, but it's not really JSON. Okay, it's a key value pairs, but maybe you have a key, you don't have a value, or maybe you forgot to put a comma somewhere and so on. Okay, so let's say if you look at the JSON data, you have a comma here, right? So maybe you forgot to put a comma here. So in those cases, you're going to get back something like a 400 bad request. Okay. And 401 unauthorized means that you haven't logged in, or maybe something wrong with your permissions and so on. So in those cases, you're going to get 401 unauthorized. Okay. 403 forbidden means that the service knows who you are, but you don't have the permission to see that resource. Okay. Let's say you're trying to see your manager's salary. Okay. So maybe you don't have the permission to see people above your level. Okay. So that is something like forbidden. Okay. 404 means you're trying to request something that doesn't exist. Maybe you're trying to give a wrong product ID. Okay. You're trying to get for some product that doesn't exist. And then in that case, it will be 404 and all that. Okay. All right. So since you know what are the HTTP status codes, you know what are the HTTP method types, let's try a few things. Let's say dummy service. Okay, so let's look at all right, let's look at this guy, dummy JSON, fake REST API. Yeah, this is better actually. Okay. So here is some website that I just looked up. Okay. So there are different requests here: get method, post method, put and delete. Okay. So there's no patch here, which is fine. So if I do get of all employees, so you can see, let me increase the font. Okay. I'm going to send you a link, send you this in the chat. Okay. So I pasted the link in the chat. But yeah, so you can see that when I click on this link, I'm going to get all employees. Okay, so I'm going to get a JSON data. And inside that data, there is something like a status, which is success. And the data says ID is 1, employee name is Tiger Nixon, salary is this, age is that, and so on. Okay, that's the second employee information, third employee information, and so on, all that. Okay, so this is what we got when we said, give me all the employee information. Okay, but I can even say, I don't want all employees. Give me only for this particular employee. Okay, so in that case, I have to say employee/1. I'm going to get only information for one employee, which is the first employee. Okay. All right. So I already got this 429, too many requests. Okay. So they are keeping track of how many requests am I sending, and they are blocking me. Okay. So let me try one more time. All right. So I just opened an incognito window, and when I try to get, so here I'm doing a get request, and I'm specifying /1. That means employee ID 1, and I got back this data. Okay, I didn't get all the employees, but I got only one employee. Okay, so this is called something called as resource identifier. Okay, so this is how the format is going to be. Okay, you have a URL, and this is the resource identifier. In this case, it's an employee identifier, and we hitting this employee/1. Okay. All right, for a post request, we're going to do post, and we're going to create a new user. Put request, same thing. We're going to go here and all that. Okay. So if you launch Postman, you're going to see something like this. Do you guys see this Postman? Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not sharing the entire screen. All right. Do you guys see my Postman here?
Yes.
All right. Hopefully, everyone has Postman. Is there anyone who doesn't have a Postman in their local system? All right. So, assuming that everybody has this Postman software, and it's a free software. I mean, yeah. Okay. So once you launch Postman, you're going to see something like this. So I'm going to say new. And so there are different things here. Where there's a collection. Collection means a group of requests that I can group together. Okay. So I'm going to first create a collection. Okay. And here I'm going to name it as dummy collection. And inside dummy collection, there's nothing else. So I'm going to click on this new one more time. But this time, I'm going to say HTTP request. Okay. All right. So once I say HTTP request, this is what I got. Okay. And you can see all these methods here. When I expand this drop down on the left side, you're going to see get, post, put, patch, delete, and all this. Okay. So these are all the methods that are supported on a HTTP service level. First, we're going to do get request. Okay. And we're going to get the employees. So I'm copying the URL that is there. And yeah, that's all we need for now. Okay, I'm going to do send request. Okay, so when I do send, you're going to see at the bottom, I got this data. Okay, so I got the status success, data of employee ID 1, what is the name, salary, and all that. Okay, so inside the web browser, it wasn't formatted nicely, but Postman actually formatted it nicely. Okay, so you can see pretty option here. But if I look at the raw option, this is going to look exactly the same as what the browser was showing me. Okay, so I'm going to go back to pretty. Okay, so it's going to format it nicely and all that. Okay, but yeah, you also want to see something like 200 OK on this side, which means remember we were saying status code 200 means it's a success status code. Okay, so you got success status code here. Okay, all right, and okay, let's try them. Okay, now once you do this, you can also save it. Okay, so you press Ctrl S. It's going to ask you where do you want to save and all that. Okay, so I'm going to save it to dummy collection, and I'm going to save it there. Okay, and I'm going to change the name of this to say get all employees. Okay, so here, so you can see inside the dummy collection, there's a test case which is a get request, and I'm getting all employees. That's the name of it, and this is the URL. Okay, this is a URL, and I can press send and all that. Okay, now there is also something else which is like parameters that you can specify. Okay, so we're going to look at the parameters now. Okay, so I'm going to say new, create. By the way, if you guys want to try this out, try it out. And in the link that I sent you, there is all the get request and everything there. Okay, so you can copy the URL and paste it right there. Okay, but if you want this URL, I can send you that too. Okay. All right, now let's create a new request, HTTP request. This time also it's a get request, but this time I want to get the second one, which is given one employee, we want to get only one employee information. Okay. So I'm copying that URL. Okay. So here I have employee /1. Okay. And if I do send, I'm going to get back 200 and I got back the employee information. Okay. But talking about the parameters, you can also have something like this. Okay. There can be something called as query parameters. You can have employee and ID equal to 1. Okay. Sorry, employee question mark, not ID. Okay. So you can say, you can also have query parameters. Here you can say ID equal to 1, or you can have something like name equal to Tiger. Okay. So these are all something called as query parameters. You can see it even says query parameters here. As soon as I said name equal to Tiger, here it puts name and the value as Tiger. Okay. Or if you have something like and ID equal to 1. Okay. So it shows up here the query parameters. What is the ID? What is the value of that identifier? All that. Okay. So if I try to send it, it's erroring out. Okay, because the URL that was provided to us, the URL that was provided to us just said /1. Okay, so there are different ways a URL can be manipulated, but the web service is primarily making us go through this URL. Okay, But there can be other use cases where you might even say ID equal to 1. Okay? So this is called query parameters. You are querying the backend, saying that give me the employees. You can have something else. Give me the employees whose identifier is 1. Or you can say name equal to Tiger. And you can also say location equal to US. You can have many query parameters. Okay, and sex equal female, male, okay, whatever your criteria is. So you can specify all those query parameters here, and then you can search for it. Okay, so you can notice that there's an ampersand and there's a question mark. Okay, so this question mark means this is the standard URL, and these are the query parameters. Okay, so it's going to show up here: name, location, and all these things. Okay? These are called query parameters. But the service that we are working with didn't ask for query parameters. It just said put /1. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I got back 200 status code. Okay, um, yeah. So that is the GET request. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. Now let's look at the POST request. Let me save this too. And dummy collection. Save it. Get one employee. Okay. Saved. Okay, I'm going to open up a new request. This time it's a POST request, and I'm doing a create. Okay. Now for a create, if I try to just send it, that's going to throw some error, and it's going to be 400 error. Okay. Oh no, it gave it 200. Okay, so this is a dummy API. That's why it's working. But in reality, we are supposed to send a body. The body has to be JSON data. Okay, so select the raw option, select the JSON data. Okay. And if I go to the website and I click on the details, okay, so let me do this 1 second. Let me share a portion of the screen. Oh, I can share multiple applications. Okay, nice. Okay, oh, it's showing the next one. Okay, this one. Okay, fine. All right, so you can see the post request here. For the post request, we have details. Okay, I'm going to click on the details. Okay, so the details are you have to provide the name, salary, and age. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. Going to Postman, and I paste it there. Okay. Okay. All right. Now here, oh, 1 second. Let me just format it nicely. Okay. All right. So we have this name, salary, and age. Okay. So let's take the name as new employee. Okay. So he's a new employee that is joining our firm, and salary is maybe 34,000. Age is 23 and all that. Okay. So the name is Richard, salary is 34,000 and all that. Okay. Now when I say send request, I got back a 200 success status code. Okay. And the new ID, the new employee ID that I got created is 1049. Okay. So when I try to say, okay, first let me save this. I want to make this create new employee. All right. Okay. Okay, so this is saved. Okay, so we are creating a new employee with these details. Okay, and I got back 200. Now let me try to remove this comma here, and let me show you what happens here. Okay, so when I click on this, it says 429 many requests. Okay, it's supposed to give me bad request, but since I made too many requests, this dummy server is saying that you made too many requests. I think they're throttling. Throttling means they're trying to prevent. Since it's a free web service, many people can hit it and all that. Okay, so they're trying to prevent this. Let me go here and try to find another dummy REST API, or maybe a free REST API or something. Okay, so there's something called a request response.n. Fake data. Yeah, this is better. Okay, let's do post request. Okay, so here is the API users, and this can create a new user. So I'm going to copy that. Give it a try. Support request. None of this. Okay, so this is the endpoint. I'm going to copy that. So the body is going to be okay, name and job. Okay. Okay, so I'm creating a new user here. Let me send you this URL. Okay, so I clicked on post create, and this is the URL to create new users. Okay, so I have the reason why I picked another one is the previous one I was getting 429 too many requests, so they're trying to prevent me from making any more requests. So I picked another dummy REST API, and I'm working with it. Okay, so here, yeah, so I have this data, which is like name, Morpheus, leader. Okay, so this matrix movie. All right, so we're going to create this new user here. Okay, so it says 201 created. Okay, so this is better than the previous one. The previous one was just saying 200. That is wrong actually. So whenever you create a new resource, you should get 201. 201 means created response. Okay. All right. Now let me try to remove this comma here. Okay. And I'm going to send it. And I got 400 bad requests. Okay. So remember, 400 means something wrong with the user. Okay. Something wrong from the caller's point of view. Okay. So the caller is not sending the right request. So in this case, we got back 400 status code. Okay. Or let's say I don't have a key here, and I try to send it. I mean, this is a dummy thing. They just created it, but in a real world, they should not work. Okay. I'll try to X, Y, Z. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is a dummy service. So it's taking whatever I throw at it. Yeah, but in the real world, you should get an error saying like you didn't provide this data, which is the job and all that. Okay. Um, I guess so. That is post request. Okay. I want you to try put request, delete request, and all those things. Okay. It is very similar to those what we looked at. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is open up PyCharm. Oh, by the way, any questions so far? Okay. So I'm assuming that you installed PyCharm Community Edition. Uh, but if you have Visual Studio Code or any other editor, that's fine too. Um, me start sharing this PyCharm also.
I can't hear you also.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. How about now? Is it the same thing?
Hello.
Is it the same thing that you can't hear me?
Now it is better.
It's better? Okay, all right. Um, okay, all right. I'm going to use that. All right, guys. So let me start sharing the PyCharm. And I'm assuming that you already installed PyCharm, Python, everything there. But you haven't installed, let me know. I can spend a few minutes helping you guys. All right. Can you guys see my PyCharm here? Okay, so when you install Python, and if this is your first time that you're installing Python, there are a couple of things that you need to do. So how many of you, I mean, if this is the first time, let me know. I have to set up a few things in your system.
Yeah, this is my first time also.
Okay, Krishna. All right, so let me share the entire screen first, or maybe I'll share the smaller screen so it's easy for you guys to see. All right, so I'm sharing the smaller screen here. If you open up or search for environment variables, okay? So click on the edit the system environment variables. If you're on a Windows system, Krishna, you're on a Windows system or Mac?
Mac.
Or you're on a Mac, okay. Mac, you're fine. I guess it already comes with a Python installed. So you should be fine with Mac. That's not a
Okay.
problem. Yeah. But if anybody's on Windows and this is the first time, let me know. I have to help you set up a few things.
Also, this is first time.
Oh, Ashwini, it's the first time for you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Click on this thing at the bottom search thing and search for environment. And before you even finish the environment, you're going to see this option, edit the system environment variables. Okay. Click on that.
Okay.
You're going to see the small pop-up here. And at the bottom, you're going to see the environment variables. Do you see that, Ashwini? Click on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, click on that. And here you're going to see path variable. Okay, so click on that path variable and click on edit.
Okay.
Okay, so you must have installed Python somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that path has to be listed here. Okay, so in my case, I installed it. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, system variables, sorry. These are the user variables, not the user. Go to the system variables and click on path and click on edit. Okay.
Yeah.
And then wherever you have installed Python, that has to be listed here. Okay. So do you remember the directory where you installed it?
Yeah, I'll check once.
Yeah, sure. So list that, copy the directory path and put it in here. So at the bottom or at the top, wherever you want, that directory has to be listed here. Okay.
Okay.
Hey Ajay, do you have that set up? I know Raghu, Sairam, Saujanya, you guys have that set up.
Yes, Vasu, I do have.
Yeah. Ajay, I'm not sure about you, man. I think Ajay just logged in and left. All right, Ashwini, let me know once you're done.
Yeah, okay, Vasu.
All right, guys, so let me go back to the other screen. All right, so when you launch the PyCharm, you're going to see this, okay? Go to File, and in File, click on New, and you're going to see a bunch of options. Click on Python File, and put some name. In this case, I said dummy request.py, but you can put any name you want. One second. Okay, all right. I did Python file, and yeah, so create a new file here. And remember, I was telling you that in Python, there's a request library that you can make a request, get back a response, and all that, right? So we're going to try a few examples here. Let me start sharing the browser also. One second. Browser. Sorry, I was checking some message on my phone. Okay, all right, guys. All right, so once you launch the PyCharm, you're going to see that. Go to File, Settings. In the settings, look for Interpreter. You're going to see Project Interpreter, okay? Hey, Ajay, are you there? Okay, all right. So in the interpreter, you're going to see all these things. Click on this plus sign at the left side or to the right side, okay? And look for requests library. Okay, you're going to see something like a request library, and click on that install package at the bottom, okay? So what this is doing is that it's installing a request library in Python on your local system, okay? So for me, it's already installed. So it says packages installed successfully, okay? All right, guys, so one more time, search for interpreter in settings, and if you select the interpreter, you're going to see a small plus sign. Click on that plus sign and look for request library and click on install package. If it's not already installed, it will install. And if it is already installed also, nothing wrong to update or upgrade. Okay. All right. You should see all the packages that are installed on the left, on the right hand, on this list here. But you can also look for request library in here. So I already have this request library here. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to say okay here. Okay. So in Python, we'll start with some basics in Python, and then we'll see how to make a HTTP request and all that. Okay. Okay. So first, we'll just do print. Okay. I can say print hello world. Okay. So this will be a print statement. As you can see, the name says that's going to print to the output, standard output. Okay. And to run the program, go to run here on the top and click on this run with 3 dots. Okay. And you're going to see a list of files here and click on edit configurations. No, actually, hold on. Click on run with the 3 dots.
Vasu, I think so. Like you're not sharing your entire screen.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I started sharing browser and I lost this thing. So I'm going to share both browser and can you see both browser and this thing?
Yeah, now we are able to. And like Vasu, like it's asking me something when I try to download this, like install this PyCharm. It's asking me for activate PyCharm or start trial or get license from.
Yeah, you must have installed Professional Edition, right? Did you install Professional or Community Edition?
I don't know that. Like I have to look at that.
Yeah, if it's a Community Edition, it's a free software. But if you install Professional, it's only works for a couple of days, like 30 days or something. After
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah. So I would say uninstall it and install the Community Edition.
Okay, Vasu, yeah, I'll do that.
Community Edition is the same as Professional. I mean, there are 1 or 2 features, couple of features that are less, but it's a free software. Yeah,
Okay, then yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right, so do the print statement, go to run, click on those run 3 dots. Sorry, let me just repeat few things since I was sharing the wrong screen. So go to file, go to settings. In the settings, search for interpreter. You're going to see project interpreter. Okay. I'm going to wait for a few seconds so you guys can do that. All right, you can click on the plus sign on the right side. Okay. When you click on that plus sign, you're going to see this packages. Search for request library. Okay, you're going to see the request package there. Click on the install package. So if it's not installed, it will install. If it's already installed, it will upgrade and all that. Okay, so it is okay to click on install package. And here in this list, these are the list of all packages that are already on your system. So you should also see requests that was already in your system. I mean, after it's installed. Okay. So what we are doing is we are installing request library from PyCharm. Okay. Okay, so once you do that, so we'll start with some Python basics, and then we'll go to the HTTP requests and those things. Okay. All right, let me know. So just put print hello world with print is a function, so you need to put this parentheses, and inside there you can put anything. So I just put double quotes hello world, but you can say whatever text you want to put. You can even put your name or anything. Okay. All right. So once you do that, do run and select this option, run with 3 dots. Okay. And at the bottom, you're going to see the new file that you have created. In my case, it's dummy_request. If you named the file something else, you're going to see that. So click on that. And then at the bottom of the editor, you're going to see whatever the print statement that you have put, it's going to print it out. Okay. And it's going to also print some status code like exit code 0. 0 means success. Okay. All right. So hopefully, is anybody facing any issues, or can I assume that everybody got this output? Okay, I'm assuming that everybody got this output, but this is very important to set up the environment, because if you don't have the environment, you cannot practice. So if you are facing any issues with this simple print statement, then we got to resolve it right now. Okay. So if you are not getting this output, let me know. We can look into it. Okay, all right. So I'm assuming that everybody got this. Okay, all right. So in Python, print is a function. Okay. In Python 2, it used to be different, but in Python 3 that we are running right now, print is a function. So you're gonna put parentheses and you're gonna put some string. Sorry. Sorry, did anybody say something? Okay. All right, guys. So print is a statement. Print is a function, and we're going to put parentheses and put some value inside. Okay. So if I just want to print some value like 5, 10, or whatever the number, so I can put that. And so the first time we went to run and clicked on run with 3 dots. But the next time I don't have to go do all that. I can just click on this green arrow. Okay. So for the first time, I'm going to do a run option and all those things. But once it is done, the second time, following times, I can click on this play button. You can see a green arrow, which is like a play button. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to run the application. Okay. All right. So you're going to see I have a number 5 as output also. Okay. Print 5. Okay. So I got that too. Now you can see that for 5, I did not put double quotes. Because double quotes are for strings. Okay, for numbers, I don't need double quotes. Okay, so that's a print statement. I can have some variables. Okay, so this will be a variable name, which is actually solutions. Okay, or I can have a value. Okay, salary equal to, let's say, 5,000. Okay, okay, and let's say.
Like Vasu, I have a question. Like, I have downloaded the PyCharm in my Mac, but it shows me some different. Like, it doesn't look the same thing which you're showing me.
You want to share your screen and show me? I'm going to make you a host. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
You can share just that PyCharm window. You don't need to share the entire screen if you want. Okay, all right. Um, Python project version control. So this PyCharm, right? So in here, click on this.
I'll give you access.
I think yeah, click on this thing. Or you gave me access?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, give me one second. All right, so this is where, okay, so you can also fix this up. Okay, okay, so this is going to be there all the time. So that means you're going to look at the files and those things, okay?
Okay.
Now, if I go to file, there should be settings. Let's go to PyCharm settings. Okay, so Mac has different options. So under PyCharm, there's a settings. I'm going to click on that. And here I'm going to search for interpreter. Okay, so I have the Python interpreter here. And the plus sign is on the top. So I'm going to click on the plus. I'm going to look for request library. Okay, so I'm going to click on install package. So this is installing the request package in your system. Package installed successfully. Okay, so I'm going to close this. And you should see request here, which is good. Okay, I'm going to close this or cancel. Okay, cancel. Okay, all right. So let's create a new file, new Python file. And I'm going to name it as dummy request demo, or maybe let's name it request demo. Okay, so that's the name of the file.
Okay, done. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just put a print statement here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's go to run and click on this run option. Okay, so click on request demo. So you're gonna see that statement. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, that's good. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Oh, I think I made you a host and I lost the host privileges. Can you make host? Can you make me
Yeah.
host? Oh, there's a reclaim host. Okay, I just reclaimed it. Okay. All right, guys. So hopefully you can see my screen now. All right, guys. So this is how you would declare a string. Okay, so I have name. Here, name is a variable that I'm putting in double quotes. So this is a string. Okay, so in Python, if you want to put a comment, you put a hash, and that becomes a comment. Okay, and this is a number, and this is also a number. Okay, so it's more of a integer, and this is more of a decimal value. All right. You can also have other data types. We're going to come to the other data types a little later. But this is how you would declare variables. Okay, you have a variable name and what is a variable value. Okay, salary, what is the salary, and all that. Okay, and I can use the print statements to print any one of these. Okay, print salary, print increment, or whatever. Okay, so you can print those stuff. Okay. All right, so there you go. So it comes out in the print statement. Now, you can also do other kind of operations. So if you can have salary equal to salary plus, let's say, 1,000. Okay. So that's an arithmetic operation. You can do the plus operation. Okay. You can do multiplication, division, any one of those. Okay, so if you do star, that's going to multiply. If you do minus, minus, if you want to divide, put a forward slash and all that. Okay. Now, if you want to get a remainder means, let's say you divide 12 by 5, you get a remainder 2. Okay, so if you want to get a remainder 2, you can do this. Remainder equal to 10 slash slash 2. Slash slash means you're gonna, sorry, slash slash 5 is to 12. Okay, so here if I do print, that's gonna print number 2 because 12 remainder when it's divided with 5 is you're gonna get 2. Okay, so if I run this, you're gonna see at the bottom it prints 2. Okay, so that is the remainder that we're going to get if you do 2 backslashes, sorry, forward slashes. Okay, there is also other operations that you could do, but for now let's leave it there. Okay, so let's say you have a string value, you want to add something to the string. So let's say I have Miracle Solutions. Now I want to add LLC. Okay, so I can do name plus LLC. Okay, so here if I do print name, so it's going to add the word LLC to the end of it. Okay, so here also I'm going to use the plus symbol. So depending on what object it is, it's going to change the behavior. Okay, so the plus is going to work for the strings also. It's going to add this to the end of that string. Okay, so you're going to see Miracle Solutions LLC. Okay, all right, so these are the basic data types, and these are some operations that you can do on those data types. Okay, now let's say I want to print. Okay, I want to print from 1 to 10. Okay, so I can do for I in range 0 to 10, and I can say print I, or if you want to print 1 to 10. Okay, so let's say we can do this 1 to 11, and I'm going to say print I. Okay, the reason why I did 11 will be very clear right now. Okay, so I'm going to run this. Okay, so you're going to see 1 to 10. Okay, it's not going to print 11 because the range function does something funky, which is it takes a start and it takes an end. Okay, so it goes from start to the end, but the end is excluded. Okay, start is included. So it's going to start from 1. It's going to go all the way to 10, but it's not going to go to 11. Once it matches 11, it's not going to execute these statements. Okay, so the print statement is going to be evaluated from 1 to 10, and I'm going to print only those values. Okay, so here you're going to see that there's a space before that. That means Python knows that this statement is part of the loop. Okay, so if I do print here outside of the loop, okay, so I'm going to do print inside. So here you're going to see that this inside is going to print 10 times, but the outside is going to print only 1 time. Okay, okay, you're going to see inside is printed 10 times, and the outside is printed 1 time. And the Python knows to execute this 10 times because you can see the space here before this before the statement. That means this print is part of that for loop. Okay. Now if I put some spaces for this guy also, now this outside is going to become part of the loop itself. Okay. Now this thing is also going to print 10 times. Okay. So spacing is very important in Python. It depends on where you put the space. It's going to become part of that block or another block. Okay. All right, any questions so far? All right, yes. So I'm assuming that everybody got this. Okay. All right. So that's for loop, but there are also other types of loops. Okay. So we just looked at a range method. But let's say if I don't want to go from 1 to, I mean, I don't want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I want 1, 5, or 1, 3 alternate numbers. Okay. So if I want alternate numbers, I can provide another one. here parameter, which is 2. Okay. So here start, end, and the third parameter is increment. Okay. How do you want to increment? So I want to increment 2 numbers at a time. Okay. So it's going to print 1, it's going to print 3, 5, and all those stuff. Okay. So you're going to see it prints 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay. It didn't print 10 because 10 is not part of that increment, and 11 it's not going to print because excluded. End is always excluded. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
Like, can you explain this again? Like,
Yeah, sure. So range method, what range does is it takes a start, it takes an end, it takes an increment. Okay. So here I said start is 1, end is 11, increment is 2. Okay. So the first time I is going to be 1. Okay. So I is going to be 1. It's going to print it. The next time I is going to be 3 because I said the increment is 2. Okay. So it's going to print 3. Now I is going to be the next time.
if we want it with even numbers, like we need to do it as a 1 or 2, 3.
Well, if you want to be even numbers, then there are a couple of things. If you want only the even numbers, you can start from 2 to 11 and you can say 2. In this case, it's going to print only the even numbers. Okay, that's one option. Okay, but the best way is that, yeah, so you can do this 1, 2, that's going to print only the odd numbers. And the best way is that you let it loop through and you say if I divided by 2, the remainder is 0. That means now here I'm printing only the numbers divided by 2. I'm getting 0. Okay. Let me remove these comments here. Okay. So we just saw that remainder, you put //. Okay. So I'm saying that if I divide I by 2 and the remainder is 0, that means it's an even number. And then I'm going to print it. And you can see the spacing. So here if is part of the for loop and the print is part of if condition. Okay. And you're going to see at the end, we're going to put a colon. Colon means that the if condition is ended and the next statement is part of the block. Okay. It did not print actually. It just printed 1. Wait a second. Mod actually. Mod is. Wait 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so the mod is the one that's giving us whether it's the remainder of this thing. The // okay, let me just look it up. Now I'm confused. / Python. Divides. Python divides operator arithmetic. Okay, fine. Floor division. Sorry, that is a floor division //. Percentage symbol is for the modulus. Okay. Now what is floor division? That's fine. Let's not worry about that. But if you want to get a remainder, you put as percentage. Percentage is going to give you the remainder. Okay. And so basically what we are doing is we are starting I from 1 and we are going all the way to 11. That means it's going to go from I from 1 to 10. And we are saying that if mod 2 equal to 0, that means the remainder is 0. Then I'm going to print it. Okay. So we're going to get only the even numbers here. Okay. Krishna, is that clear?
Yeah, so not really, but I'm trying to.
Okay. Okay, the range method takes a start, end, and an increment. Okay, so if I forget about the if condition here, let's play around with the range method. Okay, so if I provide phi here, okay, so it's gonna I is gonna go from 1, 6, 11, and so on. But once it reaches 11, it's not gonna proceed further because see 1 and 6. Okay, because the
If 12, even that doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, even if it's 12, it's not gonna proceed further because the next number. So it's
Ends
gonna
with
print
12.
11 actually because after 6, 11 is there, and 11 is less than 12, so it's gonna print that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the range method is going to give you all the values. Okay, so I can even print range 1, 2, and 5. Okay, I think this is going to give you a range object, but let's see. Okay, so you're going to get a range object. So let me change that to a list. Okay, so you're going to see at the bottom, I got these numbers as a list, which is 1, 6, and 11. Okay, so whenever I say range, a range is going to expand into a bunch of numbers or bunch of values. And this loop is saying that I, for every one of those values, loop through it and everything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So since you saw list, let's talk about list. Okay. So you can have a list of values. Okay. So I can have something like cities equal to New York, LA, San Francisco, SF. Okay. So I'm just going to change this to NY also. Okay. So you can have a list of values. Okay. Orlando, maybe overall, Miami, whatever. Okay, fine. So you're going to have a list of values. So you can see that for the list, I put a square bracket and then I'm separating every value with a comma. Okay. So a list is always going to have square bracket and there's going to be a bunch of values inside. So now I can say for city in cities, print city. Okay. So now you can imagine that this city is going to be first New York, next LA, SF, and Orlando. Okay, so when I say this print city, it's going to print each of those cities. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. So we are saying for each value in this list, do this, which is print. Okay. Now, there is also something called if condition, which we kind of just saw right now. If condition is something you can check some conditions. Okay, so I can say if name equal to solution solution, I can print my complete. Okay, or else I can say so here I have a simple if else condition, which is like a name. Here I have double equals. Double equals means I'm comparing. Okay, if you have a single equals, that means it's you're assigning the value. Okay, so you're assigning this list to this guy. Here I'm assigning salary to 5,000. Here I'm putting the name, assignment, and so on. So single equals is for assignment. And if you say double equals, that means you are saying, are they equal? Kind of like a comparison. Okay. So you're comparing name with that. And if it matches, then you're going to print it. If it doesn't match, you're going to print this value. Okay. So this is simple if else condition. And as you guys can guess, it's going to print this thing, which is my company. Okay. This thing. Okay. That's expected. So again, the spacing is important because this print will be part of that if condition. Okay. Now for the else, he said the equal level as if condition. That means if this condition is not satisfied, then it comes to the else part. So the else is optional. You can also leave it out. Okay. That means you don't want to execute something else if you don't want to execute if they're for else nothing. Okay. I mean, if it's not your company, maybe you don't want to do anything. So in that case, you don't need to put a else part. Okay. Yeah, but this is simple if else condition. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? I'm gonna go few minutes more than. I might go beyond 5 o'clock, maybe 5-10 minutes. Hopefully that will be fine. All right, guys. So we have cities, which is a list. This if condition, that's a for loop. There's also other things like while loops. Okay. I can also say while index is less than 10. keep looping, or I can say while, okay, that's fine. So let's do this. Index equal to 0, and I can say index equal to index plus 1. Okay, print index. Okay, so instead of for loop, there's also something called as while loop. Okay, so the while loop is very similar to for loop, but it will keep looping or it will keep executing until this condition is false. Okay, if this condition is true, it will execute this part. If the condition is false, it will not execute this part. Okay, so I'm going to run this. So you're going to see it prints from 1 to 10. Okay, that means it's going to start initial value is 0. So it's going to compare. Is 0 less than 10? That is true. If it is true, it's going to execute this thing. So it's incrementing index by 1 and it's printing that. Okay, and then it's going to come back and say, is 1 less than 10? Yes, it is. So it will execute that. It will increment index to 2. It will print 2 and then come back again and again and again. So when it reaches 10, it's going to do 10 equal to 10 plus 1. Sorry, when it reaches 9, it's going to say index equal to 10. It's going to print 10. It's going to come here. Is 10 less than 10? No, it's false. So it won't execute that anymore and it will come out of the loop. Okay. So it's going to keep looping there until that condition is false. Once that condition is false, it will come out of that loop. Okay. So this might be useful in some cases where you can say something like while clock not equal to whatever 4 p.m. or whatever. Okay, so you can check for some conditions while this condition is not true. Keep looping there. Okay, so or maybe while clock equal to 4 p.m. raise alarm. Okay, so you have an alarms or whatever. Okay, so you are raising that alarm at 4 o'clock. Okay, so actually let's do this. While clock not equal to 4 p.m. wait for 1 second. Okay, so you're sitting there. It's basically checking if the clock is 4 p.m. If it is not, it's waiting for 1 second. It's going to go back, check for the clock. If it is 4 p.m., so it's going to wait until this condition is false. Okay, so this loop is going to wait until it's going to wait for 4 p.m. Once it's 4 p.m., it's going to come out of that because at 4 p.m. this condition will be false. Okay, so while loop will execute until the condition becomes false. Okay. All right. Any questions on this?
Like Vasu, we gave IDX is equals to index is equals to index plus 1, right? So that's the
Yes.
reason starting from 1 to 10, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So it's incrementing. So the first time it's 0. So it's doing 0 plus 1, 1. And it's assigning a value of 1 to the index.
Like index is less than 10, so that's the reason it prints from 1 to 10.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So that is while loop and if conditions, for loops, and so on. So the for loop is useful if you have a list of values and you want to loop through every one of those values. The for loop is helpful. But if you want to wait for some condition to be false, then the while loop is better. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at a few more things. Now I have cities. Okay. Now I forgot to add some value to the city. I want to add it. Okay, so I can do cities dot append, and let's say I want to add Miami. Okay, so I can do dot append. Dot append means it's going to print. Okay, so it's going to add to the list. Okay, let me comment this. And by the way, you can highlight, you can select that, and you can put control /, and that will automatically comment the code. Okay. So that's one advantage of using editors like PyCharm and other editors, that you can just highlight it makes it easy. Okay, so instead of going to every line and commenting, you can highlight and put control/, and that should comment. And if you want to uncomment, I can do the same thing, control/, and that will comment. Okay. All right. So let me just comment it out. Okay. All right. So I have the cities list here, and then I'm appending Miami later, and then I'm printing that. Okay. So here you're going to see the new list along with Miami as part of it. Okay. Now instead of one value, I want 5 different values that I want to add. So I can append 5 different times, but that's not efficient, right? I can add all of them in a single shot. So I can say extend, let's say Ontario as part of Canada. Okay. Let's say, give me some cities, Dallas. Okay. Or we want to add Seattle. Okay. All right. So I can add multiple things at the same time, but instead of doing append, I'm going to do extend. Okay. And then I'm going to print it one more time. Okay, so here you can see the new values also added to the list. Okay, so if you want to add one value, use append, but if you want to add multiple values, use extend. Okay, now Python is so beautiful that you can have a list inside another list. I mean, every language supports it, but Python makes it a little easier, and I will tell you why. So let's say I have another list inside list. Okay, so I can do the cities.append. Let's not append. Okay. Let's declare this new list, which is people equal to. Okay, so I'm gonna have 2 lists or list inside list. Okay, so I can have Richard, Sam, Bob. Okay, so that's my US employees. Okay, let's have people from other country. Let's say Raj, or let's say XYZ, whatever. Okay, so you can have a list inside another list, and Python is happy with it. I mean, no problem with that. Okay, so if I print this, so I have one list of values and another list of values. I can have as many lists as I want. I can have as many levels as I want. Okay, so you can see the same thing is printed here at the bottom, a list inside a list. Okay, now at the same time, I can have some non-numeric values also here. It doesn't matter. Python is type independent, so it doesn't care. Okay. Okay, so you can have those values also. You can have an empty list inside a list. Okay. You can have purely these things, numbers. Okay, so Python is happy with it. Okay, so you can have a list inside a list, and you can have multiple levels of lists also. Okay, so I can have another list here. Okay, so Python lets you do that, which is list inside a list, and it doesn't need to be string type. You can have one string, one number, whatever you want. Okay, so it lets you do that. Now we saw lists so far. Let's say I want to access the first list or first city. Okay, so I can do cities of square bracket 0. Okay, so all the indexes start with 0. Okay, so when I say 0, it's going to give me the first value. When I say 1, it's going to give me the next value, and so on. Okay, so let me comment this. Okay, so here you go. So it prints New York. Okay, that's because when I said 0, that is the 0th index, and that prints this value. Okay. If I want the last city, I mean, here I have a list of 4 cities. There will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that will be the last one. Okay, 3. Okay. All right. So I'm going to print that. That's going to print the last one, which is Orlando. let me put the whole line. Okay, so let's print it out. Okay, so you're gonna see Orlando there, but I don't want to. I mean, let's say there are hundreds of values. I don't want to count all of them and give the index. So Python makes it easy. So you can give -1. So whenever you provide minus negative indices, it starts from the end of the list. Okay, so -1 means from the end, give me the last element. Okay, so that's going to print Orlando also. So you can see it prints Orlando also. Okay, so let's say I want last but one. Okay, San Francisco. Cities of -2. That means give me the second value from the end. Okay, so Python takes a negative indices, and negative indices means starting from the end. Okay, so you're gonna get San Francisco and all that. Okay, all right. Now this is purely about lists and all that. Okay, so since we are talking about requests, let's just do this for now. Okay. So import the request library. So in Python, if you want to get a package, you would say import. Okay, import requests. And let's go to Postman or this thing which we did here. Yeah, let's get this employees. Okay. So I'm simply going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to say response equal to request.get. So anytime you do request dot, and it's going to show you get request, put request, and those, and you can do post and any one of those. Okay, so I'm going to do get here, and I'm going to paste that URL that we just copied there, and I'm going to say print response. So that's all you need. Just 3 lines of code, and you can make a request to the service. Okay, so that's the power of Python. Using these 3 lines, you are making a request, a get request to get all the employees. You're getting a response and you're printing the response. Okay, so I'm gonna run this. So I got 406 response. I think it's still preventing me. So let's actually go back to a different service that we were trying, which is request response.ls. Okay. List users. Okay, so let's get this guy. API users, page 2. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is a query parameter. You are saying page equal to 2. That means this is a query parameter, and you are saying page equal to 2. Okay. Okay. So I pasted that URL there, and I'm saying give me print the response. Okay. So you're gonna see it says response is 200, and it didn't print the actual response. So we are expecting this thing, right? So it didn't print it. It just print the status code. So if you want to get the value, you can do something like this. Print response.text. Okay. And when I run this, so you're going to see at the bottom, this URL, or sorry, this text message, this text data that we got is what is the response text is going to be. Okay. So you need 3 lines. One is for the request importing and request.get, and you get back a response. Okay. So this is the power of Python in the sense it makes it much easy to automate a lot of stuff. Okay. Once you get this, you want to verify status code is 200, and there are a couple of things you can do. If response.status code equal to 200, you can say print EA is success. Okay. Else you can say print failure, test failure, whatever you want to say. Okay. So this can be a simple test case where you are saying that, hey, if the status code is 200, I'm happy. The test case is a pass, successful. But if not, then test case failure. Okay. So you can see here success at the bottom. Okay. So what we did is we imported a library, and from that library, there's a function called get. I call the get function, and then I'm passing this URL to that. I'm getting a response from there. I'm assigning it to this value, and I'm saying if the response status code is 200, it's good, else it's failure. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm gonna stop here. I mean, if you have any questions, maybe I can answer them now. Yeah, if no questions, then I'm gonna stop here. And I want to give you a small, maybe like a practice test or practice assignment kind of stuff, so that you guys will be ready next time, or you can practice a little bit on your side. Okay. All right. So this is what I want. Print all odd numbers from 1 to 100. Okay. Print all characters from A to Z. Okay. I want you to give a string, print only uppercase characters. Okay. So if I give you a string like Miracle Solutions LLC, where did it go? Okay, M is capital, S is capital. The rest everything is lowercase. Okay, so I want you to print only the uppercase characters, and you guys can look up how to check for uppercase. It's a if condition and all that. Okay, so you can verify that. Yeah, and I would say use the request library and to get. Okay, so go back here. Single user. Okay. Get and validate the status code. Number 2. Yeah, this is the single resource not found. Okay, so this is an invalid resource, and you should get 404 or whatever the status code is. Okay, get off this and validate the status code. Okay, so that's fine for now. Okay, so these are the 5 or few things that I want you to practice. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with Sunday 3 to 5. And you can send me the solutions anytime. I mean, I don't think it takes more than half an hour for you guys. So practice that. The more you practice, the better it is. So the next session is going to be on Sunday, next Sunday at 3 o'clock. And I'm going to send you a link, new link, and all those things. And if you have any questions, you can shoot me on WhatsApp, or you can we can talk also on the phone. But yeah, but at a high level, what I want is if you are getting any vendor calls, like if a vendor calls you, I want you to be in a position to answer like high level questions. Selenium WebDriver, maybe a request library. You worked with different HTTP status codes. Yeah, I mean, worked with PyCharm editor and so on. But there are other technologies that we didn't talk about. Maybe like Jenkins. We can talk about Jenkins. We can also talk about some Apache Kafka and other things. But at least you have some idea to talk confidently with those vendors. Okay. I just wanted to give you that, at least that confidence to talk with the vendors. Then we can probably, get more into. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, that's it, guys. And if you have any questions, shoot me on WhatsApp. Okay. All right, guys. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Vasu. You too.
Yeah, I'm going to share the recording. Once I'm going to upload this recording to YouTube, and I'm going to send you the recording also. Yeah.
Okay, then, yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Asu.
Yeah, sure.